An Empire of Ice and Fire by Longclaw 1-6, Chapter 79, The Crown vs. Tywin Lannister. Here we go, people! And tell me, Lord Cerwyn, what happened after your father refused to pledge loyalty to a false king? Whereas most conducted trials would stay in their chairs, droning on endlessly, Peter Baelish had a certain style about him, dashing about the well of the court, asking animated questions and making wild, sweeping hand gestures. One couldn't help but be riveted by it, after he refused to betray House Stark of Winterfell. From the witness stand, Lord Clay Cerwyn glared murderously at the defendant before the tribunal.
He ordered my father to be burnt alive, and then watched with pleasure as he screamed his death in the flames.
Cerwyn was the last Northern Lord, excluding Robb Stark, left in King's Landing, the others long since heading back to the Imperial Army headquarters and Moat Cailin. But he remained, insisting to give testimony against the man that had murdered his father. The Emperor and Empress oversaw the trial today, and it was clear to the maze of onlookers as to why. Viserys Targaryen had always dreamed of how he would return to the Red Keep. Such dreams had been at the head of a Dothraki horde or a northern army, but reality found him in chains in front of a tribunal that included his sister and Jon Snow. He couldn't decide which was more humiliating. And who had given the order for this burning? It was Ramsay, that traitor! Viserys' screech echoed throughout the hall. He was normally silent, but sometimes erupted. Jon slammed his fist against the arm of the dragon wolf throne.
The prisoner will keep silent unless called on to speak.
You give me no orders, bastard! Northern bitch! Pimp! It was clear that all sanity had left him. When a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin. Daenerys had landed on greatness. Viserys on madness. Only here had it come off to all as pathetic. Dany had had enough. Guards, restrain the prisoner. The Unsullied gladly obeyed their Misa. One more word, and you will be gagged. It seemed to calm things down. Answer the question, Lord Cerwyn.
Of course, Your Highness. It was the Mad Prince.
The record will reflect that the witness identified the prisoner as the one that committed the crime, Littlefinger stated smugly. I've heard enough. Eyes shifted to the Empress. I feel that enough evidence has been presented to head the verdict. She glanced at Jon. Do you concur, Your Majesty?
Jon nodded. I do. It was a foregone conclusion. As Emperor, I vote guilty.
As Empress, I vote guilty. 8 years before, she had looked up at him with eyes full of fear, hoping not to wake the dragon. Now the position was inverted. Daenerys, her husband and the true Targaryen ruler by her side, sharing the throne of Westeros between them, stared down at her brother. Viserys Blackfyre, the Imperial Court finds you guilty of murder and treason. You cannot kill the dragon, bastard slut, he hissed, struggling against the grip of his guards, and sentence you to die. Hand on his sword, Ser Jorah advanced to carry out the sentence, just as he or Grey Worm had done for countless traitors and war criminals. All justified. All deaths that neither lost sleep over.
Stop.
He stilled, turning his head to see the Emperor rise.
I must do the deed.
Daenerys, face allowing her concern to show. Jon.
It has to be me.
Grasping her hand, kissing it, he left her to walk down to the well of the throne room.
He is my kin. If I am to condemn him to death, then I must be the one to swing the sword.
Dany retook her seat, hands plopping into her lap as she watched her husband. So honourable, even if it kills him inside. But would he be the man I love without his honour? She knew the answer. Stepping gingerly, boots clicking along the fine marble tile, Jon said nothing as the guards dragged a squirming Viserys to a block of wood, brought up specifically for this moment. He was forced upon it, the Mad Prince screaming in pain, as one dragged his disfigured hand and forced it down. Teeth gritted, he met Jon's eyes.
Any last words to say, Uncle?
You are no kin of mine. Drawing Longclaw from its scabbard, Jon looked down on Viserys, Dany's insane, incompetent brother. His uncle. Looking into his eyes, seeing the dark indigo sparkling with a fiery madness that he so prayed would never grace Dany's. Jon felt nothing but contempt for this husk of a man. A disgrace to House Targaryen.
Viserys,
he said, denying him any right from a name.
In the name of Daenerys of House Targaryen, first of her name, Empress of the Targaryen Empire, I sentence thee to die.
Pure hate gazed back at him. In that one moment, Jon knew what his grandfather, Rickard Stark, saw as the Mad King sentenced him to die. You may kill me, but you will always be a bastard. Atop her throne, Daenerys never hated her brother more than this moment. Kill him, she commanded, lips quivering with dragonfire. Before him, Jon found himself transported back in time, to when the oafish coward Janos Slynt was placed before him, before Longclaw's blade. Jon had and wanted to kill him, simply wanting the coward to be banished from his sight in disgust. But Viserys, the embodiment of what drove his family to near extinction, what drove Daenerys into hiding and near assassination on multiple occasions. Jon felt the same hate towards him reflected back. In an instant, a flash of Valyrian steel cut through the air to clunk against the wood below, head rolling across the stone floor. Jon stood there before the decapitated body of his uncle. Breathing heavily, the magnitude of what was done coming to him, he wordlessly headed Longclaw back to Ollie before striding back to his throne. May the record state that the sentence was carried out by His Majesty. Littlefinger was nothing but thorough. As Ollie wiped his uncle's blood off of Longclaw, Jon took his seat on the Dragonwolf throne. He felt heavy, the weight of it all falling upon him. My uncle. He killed his own uncle. It was his responsibility.
He who passes the sentence must swing the sword.
And gods, the bitch deserved it, but the killing just never stopped. All he had done was kill, from no names to his own kin.
I'm good at fighting, but I hate doing it.
But he had enjoyed it for the slightest moment. Enjoyed slicing Viserys' head off. Jon felt disgusted with himself, and weary with it all. Soft fingers squeezed his hand, brought Jon out of his brooding. Glancing to his right, Daenerys watched him intently. Her mouth was curled in a queenly glower, but her eyes sparkled with concern. With love. It was like energy filled him, his skin doused in fire after hours in a frozen lake.
Lord Baelish,
he said finally.
Who is next?
Littlefinger appeared at the list in front of him. A ghost of a grin formed. Tywin Lannister, Your Majesty.
Jon fought a groan.
We will begin his trial in the morning. Daenerys caught his irritation and stress, speaking up. Someone that important needed a whole day to himself. The court is adjourned until tomorrow. The page smacked his staff on the floor, all rising as the Emperor and Empress made his way out. Line break. The North will rest easy tonight, now that Viserys is no more. From what Tywin had heard from Ser Jorah, the middle child of the Mad King was a stupider chip off the old block. A right bitch, if you ask any objective northerner. Clay Kerwin will undoubtedly spread the word faster than ravens. He was leaving tonight for Moat Cailin with his men. King's Landing stocks of Wildfire and Queen's Shield men bound for the wall. Varys followed by his side, both behind their monarchs. My worry is more of those not in the dungeons. Lady Sansa thinks there are many Lannister agents still remaining, and my little bird seemed to concur. Littlefinger is investigating, but I'd like to do some digging on my own. Do it, Dany stated, distracted. The Emperor said nothing. And the court painter applicant is here, Tyrion cut in with some calm news as they entered the inner solar. I think you'll like the portraits. Entering, Jon immediately went to before the fireplace. It was empty on this cool day in the capital, but Jon stared at it nonetheless. Hunched over, he braced his arms atop the banister, sagging from the weight of it all. All noticed by Daenerys, her husband close to his breaking point. This will be continued later. Her tone left no room for counter. When Varys and Tyrion failed to obey her command immediately, her tone rose. Leave now! The hand and Master of Whisperers left with all haste, knowing it was not wise to displease the Mother of Dragons. Tyrion, sighing, rolled the kinks out of his neck. I saw two forms of fire and blood today, my cockless friend. One a pathetic imitation of his more infamous father, and the other most vicious only when her husband or children are hurt. In all his years advising kings, from the vicious to the idiots to the vicious idiots, Varys had never seen anything like it. Our Empress's heart has survived everything thrown at it, likely due to our Emperor.
And someone who literally died from betrayal has stayed true to himself.
Two kind souls, not deserving any of this. Childless himself, the imp often saw his two majesties as sort of a paternal manner. When they were pained, he was pained.
Such a shame, Varys. What is happening to their majesties?
They proceeded down the hallway, down the rows of countless statues of past Targaryen kings, restored to their rightful place. All they have is the best intentions, and yet they are driven to madness by those with the worst. Oh, did he know about those with the worst of intentions? Only those that do not truly wish to rule prove to be good at it, Varys reflected, on the first time he had entered these halls, during the final years of Aegon V's reign. Aemon Targaryen truly desired to forego the throne, and he did. Perhaps the pain of the last decades would not have happened had he accepted his birthright.
And yet we wouldn't have Emperor Jon and Empress Daenerys.
Tyrion chuckled.
We are truly living in momentous times, Varys.
Even without an army of dead men marching south to wipe us all out, change is in the air. We chose wisely in who to follow, at least at the end. They share the same gentle heart and moral compass, placing them above we schemers and sadists. It was the truth, Tyrion knew. Few came to power without selling their souls to despair or madness.
They did.
And they checked their worst impulses.
Daenerys protects Jon from indecisive brooding, and Jon tempers the Targaryen ruthlessness in Daenerys. I am a lucky man to be in their confidence, and fear for those who would get in their way.
The normally emotionless eunuch looked down at the imp with the ghost of a smile. I know the meaning of the words in the fire long ago. You will die in a foreign land, my son, he recited, burned into his memory. But rejoice, for you will do so gladly, in a land called Empire. The voice was right, Tyrion. We've been lucky, but it is fortitude that nurtures such luck. Varys disappeared down a dark corridor, leaving Tyrion mystified at the cryptic statement. As soon as the doors were closed, Daenerys threw her arms around Jon and pulled his head onto her shoulder.
Oh, Jon.
She rubbed his back, feeling the heat of unshed tears. You did right. You did right, she murmured over and over again into his ear.
I enjoyed killing him. Jon's voice was hoarse. He was my uncle, and I enjoyed slicing off his head.
Viserys brought it onto himself. He allied with the sadist in order to rape and massacre his way to the Iron Throne.
He was still my family.
Jon could just picture it. His grandfather murdering his other grandfather, raping his grandmother.
I fear I am becoming the Mad King.
Horror gripped Janny's expression. What? Oh, God, no! She kissed him, endlessly, fighting to get her message across. You are a good man. Why would you even think that?
It is in my blood. The madness.
You are not mad. You are nothing like him. She gazed into his eyes, willing the thoughts of the terrible, evil past away. So beaten down for being a bastard, it now only occurred to him that he was truly a dragon. If we look back, we are lost. Jon's eyes still held an infinite weariness.
You know what they say. The coin flips.
And one half is greatness, Jon. That is you. Hands on his cheek, she gazed into his weary, grey eyes. We don't fight for power, for a meaningless throne. We fight for our people, so that they may live in a better world than the shit one they've always known. So that the wheel never crushes them, nor that they ever know chains. Her hand traced the scar over his shirt. You took a knife in the heart for your people. You're a good man, a good emperor. Dany took his hand and put it over her heart. My emperor. He leaned forward for another kiss, quenching the emptiness in his soul with Daenerys.
Promise me, Dany, if I become mad...
You won't.
Promise that you'll take Saracen and do the deed.
Tears prickled in Dany's eyes.
Please. His words trailed off as they just stood there, swaying softly. Gently, Danny pulled her husband towards their outer solar. Perhaps a look at the portraits would cleanse his mind. The artist had arranged 2 large canvases, nearly reaching the ceiling, with drapes covering them. He was the same one from Marine that John had so admired, and spent his time in White Harbour during the final stage of the Emperor's War, honing his craft with images of the North. Now he pushed for something far grander. "Your Majesty, I hope all is to your liking." Daenerys gasped as the drape fell away from the canvas, exposing the painting to light once more. My gods! The artist had truly created a masterpiece. John was posed in his battle armour, as a decisive conqueror, black cloak with a red tinge draping over him in a billowing mass. The paint was so fine, she could even pick out the strands of fur on the cloak. One hand extended out to touch the top of a northern helmet beside him, the other gripping the hilt of Longclaw tied to his belt. What captured Danny the most was the expression. She looked with awe at John's brooding face peering out, with warmer touches of red reserved only for the full lips and cheeks, his grey eyes shining with an emotion of strength. One she fell in love with. "It looks just like you, my love." Everyone would know what the great Jon Targaryen looked like in his prime, the man who had won the heart of the Mother of Dragons. Jon didn't hear her, too transfixed by Danny's portrait. Crown atop her braided head, she stood only feet away from the Iron Throne itself, one hand extended out, palm open in a gesture of grand altruism, the other resting on the pleats of her black battle dress. Draped over her shoulders was a blood crimson royal robe, combined with the dress as the colours of House Targaryen. Silver jewels graced Danny's form, coloured in the same as her hair, but one that stood out to Jon was the chain draped across her chest. The clasp was a direwolf's head, the sigil of House Stark, and set in her face were her violet eyes. The artist had captured the contrast in her, the pale colours set in a hard edge of a strong ruler, while the eyes radiated warmth, love, caring, the same gaze Danny gave him, the one that could melt his most brooding. The first person to truly show that to him, to give him a home, to prove him not merely a bastard named Snow, or a madman named Targaryen. Perhaps she would be his salvation from a horrible fate, and he hers. Smiling at his reaction, Danny turned to the artist. "I believe the Emperor approves. If you can produce more like these, then you shall be the official painter of the court." The Myronese artist bowed low, gratefully. "Thank you, Mista. It is the honour of a lifetime." Soon they were alone. Danny looked once more at her portrait. "I do look pretty good there, don't I?" Jon didn't answer, merely enveloping her in his arms. She returned his embrace, looking up. "Jon." "I love you, Danny. You gave me a home."
His words of affection, of love, they melted her. This perfect man, one of kindness, honour, bravery and strength, devoted to her more than even her dragons. So perfect. Only for the world to use every opportunity to destroy him. He'd literally take a knife for his people. If he had to die for her, he would in an instant. It broke her heart to think about, but at least she could give him the love he deserved. "You gave me a home as well, my love." Danny kissed him, deeply. Line break. Fist hovering barely an inch from the wood of the door, Jaime Lannister hesitated. A man that rarely hesitated. Trained by the sword of the morning and Barristan the Bold, he was used to making bull-headed, aggressive decisions.
Perhaps that is what got me in hot water.
But this was not out of turning a new leaf. Jaime just didn't know what he would say, simply standing there out of fear. All was set for the Night's Watch detachment of the Imperial Army to march out. Giscari volunteers, the Brotherhood without banners, the Fiery Hand irregulars that Kinvara had brought from Essos, and the remnants of the City Watch of King's Landing. 5,000 men ready to defend Castle Black, all under his command. Jaime figured he'd be afraid of dead men.
for the image of the snarling corpse in the dragon pit, generally with Cersei's face, haunted his very dreams. But he wasn't at the moment. Instead, fearful of a crippled boy, the one he was here to see. As he was about to knock, the door opened. Jaime was face to face with Littlefinger. The Master of Laws nodded at him, smiling. "Lord Lannister." Jaime scowled. "Lord Baelish." The oily two-bit aristocrat slid past him towards whatever hole he dug for himself in the palace. Now it was only two within the room. Jaime bowed reverently to its occupant. "Lord Stark, may I have permission to enter?" From his wheelchair, Bran peered at him. "Of course, Lord Lannister. Please enter." Jaime complied with the invitation, closing the door behind him. He held a gaze on Jaime, one of infinite knowledge and wisdom. Wisdom to last thousands of lifetimes. "I am not Lord Stark, though. That honour belongs to my brother. You may call me Bran, though only half of me bears that name." "All right, Bran," Jaime replied hesitantly, sitting down. Not able to pass that statement for its true meaning, the boy had a dagger resting on his lap, fingers occasionally fiddling with it, the only source of actual humanity Jaime could see. "Where did you get that?" he asked, recognizing Valyrian steel anywhere. Bran looked up at him, placid. "Lord Baelish wanted me to have it, as a gift." He furrowed his brows. "Give away a Valyrian steel dagger?" Even Littlefinger wouldn't give away something so valuable. "It was the blade that nearly killed me." Bran's voice was flippant as well as emotionless, as if he spoke of a fond childhood memory rather than a near assassination. "While I was asleep in my bed. Only Mother and Summer kept me alive. A dagger supposedly owned by Tyrion Lannister." He looked at Jaime. "Why would he seek my death?" said Jaime. There was no accusation in Bran's voice, but Jaime felt it all the same. "You didn't tell them?" He stared at Bran, as if to see any emotion flickering in the boy's eyes. "You knew it was me in the tower, yet you said nothing." No emotion was forthcoming. "My brother Robb already wanted you dead. I don't think even Sons Ordinaris would stand in the way of your death or imprisonment, if I told them the truth." "Don't you want justice, Bran?" He didn't want to die, but Jaime just couldn't let it go. Couldn't let go of the guilt that had started the war and the chaos. "For your legs, for your family. I caused this entire war. Just for a woman who you loved, but who didn't truly reciprocate?" As always, Bran knew everything. "You weren't the cause of the war," said Jaime. "Events were in play long before that." Golden eyes widened. "Jon Arryn. So he was poisoned after all." In the end, it still didn't matter. "I deserve your hate. Deserve the Emperor's justice." "What good would that do?" Bran looked out the window. "Just because you are here means you aren't your sister. Without your actions, I would never be what I am. Out of the tragedy came the dawn. So it seems I have to thank you." Jaime blinked. "What? Why would it be you who—" Bran cut him off. "I'm not sure yet," said Jaime. "But I know that we both have our parts to play. Parts so vital that they hold the future of the living in their hands." "I don't deserve it." A lifetime of running away from his decisions, of welding himself to a woman he loved, allowing it to give him meaning. All of it came crashing down as he journeyed with Brienne, losing his hand and all his walls. Re-evaluating his life as his son destroyed everything good and just in the Seven Kingdoms. Time to atone for his misdeeds, only for the victim of his greatest misdeed to forgive him just like that. "I deserve to suffer for my past sins." "If I look back, I am lost." There was a terse silence. "The past is behind us. All that remains is the future. A future that will not exist unless we play our parts." "How would I—" "When the time is right," Bran smiled. "You will find out." Line break. Excusing the witness from the stand, Littlefinger looked at the Emperor and Empress, then at the watching, packed audience, then back to his monarchs. "And so it is shown, your majesties. The prisoner gave the order for Gregor Clegane to rape and murder Elia Martell and her children with Crown Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. A direct assault on the imperial family itself." He spread his hands wide, theatrical gestures that the crowd ate up. "All for the claims of a usurper. Tywin Lannister watched from the prisoner's perch. Hands gripping the lip, he strained himself to stand upright, with the flimsy prosthetic attached weakly to his stump. The epitome of a fallen man, but no ordinary prisoner. Even in pain and with a legacy toppled, he was still a lion. Still a lord. Fire made flesh. The look in Jon's eyes could melt Valyrian steel. "Is that the last witness, Lord Baelish?" he growled out through clenched teeth. The charges for Tywin Lannister were long and the evidence ironclad. Hours of testimony ranging from the burning of Dorne, the carrying out of Joffrey's reign of terror, the war crimes during the War of the Four Kings, Arya being star witness in this regard, and the murder of the Targaryen children had left many exhausted and hateful, leaving Jon boiling with rage that would have overheated even Balerion. "Yes, your majesty," replied Baelish. "The crown rests its case." "I believe we may proceed to the verdict," Jon told his wife. Unlike her husband, Daenerys was pure ice, channeling her adoptive house. "Do you have anything to say for yourself, Lord Lannister?" Glaring back, Tywin did not give the Targaryens an inch. "Nothing that would change your minds." "Nothing could change Joffrey's mind," the Empress shot back. "Give us some modicum of regret, and we may accede to your son's proposal." Tyrion had tried to broker a deal, to send him to the wall rather than this. Tywin refused, but the imp was in the throne room nonetheless. Heartbreak on his face. "I know I will never get a fair trial from the likes of you," Tywin thundered. "I saw the madness in your father, your grandfather, my once friend, and there are no regrets within me that I tried to rid the world of House Targaryen and the death and destruction it caused, of the Mad King reborn in the two in front of me." Where once it would have crippled him inside, sending him into brooding isolation, Jon sat with steel. "You served the Mad King reborn, the king that you sat next to at the Dragon Pit only months ago," refusing to budge. "You don't deserve a fair trial, but House Targaryen gives you one nonetheless." "Murdering my niece and nephew," hissed Daenerys, "assisting Joffrey in the enslavement of millions, nearly murdering my own children. The death and destruction of the last few decades rest at your feet, Tywin Lannister. There is nothing before us that precludes finding of your guilt." In one moment, the pain and rage of weeks in the dungeons evaporated from him, the fear of a red demon leaving. Tywin looked at the epitome of the man that had destroyed the reigns, that made Dorne howl. "Oh, there is my Empress. If I am to be guilty, then let the gods decide my fate." "Father, please," Tyrion pleaded. He had already lost his sister to complete madness, a nephew to its fires, and a niece as collateral damage. Tywin may have hated him, but he was still his father. "Confess and take the black, please." "Shut your mouth, demon spawn," Tywin thundered. "I will not have you decide my fate as you decided your mother's." Tyrion hung his head, defeated. The former Lord of Casterly Rock locked eyes with Daenerys, mutual hate reflecting in both. "The gods will be my judge. I demand a trial by combat, with Sir Gregor Clegane as my champion." The hall watched in silence, as the Empress sat, normally warm and kind eyes blazing fire and blood. Trials by combat were an ancient rite. But each time they had been requested, the Emperor had denied them with the Empress silent. Now the ball was in Dany's court. "Very well, it shall be granted." End of chapter. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Oh boy. Okay, that trial was quite something. Baelish really performing the theatrical role here. And can I just say, that scene with Jaime and Bran, my god. Wow. Let's just say I hope there's a bit more pathos than there was in the show. The non-existent 8th season left much to be desired, didn't it? But I like that Tywin's getting his justice. You know? That man, as much as he had respect, was a bad man. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe. Hit the bell. Blah, blah, blah. Take care, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!